How's it going, everybody? Great in here. LPM podcast. We've got a great episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about sketch cards and sketch cards as an insert in these recent Marvel products. We've seen a lot of conversations about the checklists, the inserts, the number of parallels, and sketch cards seem to be becoming a bit of an endangered species. So we're going to chat with an expert on the topic today. I'm going to bring him into the studio right now, and we will have a great chat about this. Mr. Tony Perna.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me on your podcast today.
Thank you so much for joining us. We were talking about this a little bit, sketch cards and the checklists that have come out for products like Marvel Platinum. A lot of chatter about it. Why not to start us off, could you introduce yourself and give us a bit of a background?
Yes, my name is Tony Perna. I've been doing sketch cards professionally for licensed products since 2006. I've been around for a while. I do collect cards as well. My go-to character is Wolverine, preferably in the brown and tan costume.
Yeah.
I also have backup characters such as Namor in the black costume and Taskmaster.
I love that you know the costumes, that your preferences. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me that you would, but I love that you know specifically what you're looking for. I love that.
It just when I first seen him in that costume, the brown and tan, it just made more sense to me.
Yeah.
As the character Wolverine to have a comic colored costume with the like browns and yellows like a real Wolverine would have. So
I love those outfits. I think a lot of people agree with you that kind of Jim Lee coloring, that Jim Lee image is very much the Wolverine. So you said you started in 2006. What was the first licensed product that you worked on?
Well, I was approached by Rittenhouse Archives. At that time, I didn't really know much about companies doing sets with sketch cards in them.
Mm-hmm.
They had contacted me via email and asked if I would be interested in working on their first comic book based card set, doing sketch cards. I was kind of hesitant. I didn't know who they were, so I kind of looked them up, and I saw that they had real legit licenses like Xena and James Bond and Star Trek, and I said, oh, these are like real people. Okay, and I yeah, I'll give it a go. Let me know what I can do. And they gave me a list of characters I was allowed to draw. Because I was a newbie at the time, I did repeated poses of the same character. So they'll be like Dr. Doom, the same pose I did 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
I moved away from it ever since. Rittenhouse gave me the chance. And then from Rittenhouse, I did Lord of the Rings for tops. And then I got Upper Deck was doing some sets. It just kind of snowballed from there.
So you've worked for a couple of, so you were saying, so Rittenhouse, Upper Deck, you've got to kind of see how a couple different companies do business, and I'm assuming you've worked with a number of different art directors at these companies.
Oh yeah, Cryptozoic too as well. I've worked for. With Upper Deck, the art director seemed to change every 3 to 4 years.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it was kind of like starting at the beginning with each art director, because when they would contact you and say, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm the new art director for Upper Deck. We're wondering if you would like to work on some cards. This is what we want from you." But my contract had kind of changed over the years.
Yeah.
So I was used to doing a specific number and getting a specific amount of APs, and I kind of had to start from the beginning and say, "No, well, I've been working with you guys for a long time. This is what I usually get," and they're okay with it. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it's kind of like renegotiating your contract though every couple of years.
Yes, it kind of does get frustrating because I basically have to introduce myself again. It's like, basically start from the beginning, almost going for a job interview again.
Yeah.
But at the same place, you know what I mean? It's like
with a fantastic portfolio to show. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like no, I work for you guys already. Why am I doing this?
For the odd viewer that's watching this that doesn't know what an AP is, could you tell the viewers what an AP is?
An AP is basically a duplicate blank of the inserted cards that we work on. The only difference is there is an AP stamp either on the front or the back, or it actually says the words artist proof, which is what the artists get to keep and solicit out, and they would get 100% of the profits. So if I had a blank and you were interested in a saber tooth, I could draw that saber tooth. We would negotiate on a price.
Yeah.
I would show you samples of roughs, different poses. You would pick the one. I would draw it on the card, color it, ink it. You pay for it, and I send it to you.
So does it come directly to me, or is there an approval process in that?
We have to send the image in for approvals. We don't have to send the card physically, just as long as they have the image.
Right.
And then once I get the go ahead, I can send it into you. But Upper Deck had been getting kind of slack with their approval processes. Sometimes it's actually taken up to a year for cards to get approved, and it doesn't help the artist when they can't sell that card
for sure
for that year. But I've gotten to the point where I kind of know the rules well enough that I know a card will get approved because doesn't go against any of the rules, and it's not a banned character or whatnot. So
right,
it's not send the card
holding a handgun before
they approve it. So.
Yeah, that's right. Something I wanted to ask you in regards to APs. So, traditionally in the past, you guys have been issued a very slim number of APs versus the number of cards that you have as an inserted insert. Do artists need to get APs in order to stay afloat as a sketch card artist? Is that how it works?
And yes, in all honesty, I would rather not get paid and get more APs.
Yes.
I would rather do the inserted cards for free and get more APs. I definitely make my money on the APs.
Yeah.
For one AP is the equivalent of maybe 10 cards that I do for inserted.
Mm-hmm. So I guess in negotiations, that's a big part of it, is how many insert cards you're going to do versus how many APs they're going to give you per insert.
Yes. And I know that they kind of want to cut back on the APs that they give the artist. I was given the excuse of, we don't want too many of these cards out in the wild, but that hasn't stopped people from posting inserted cards that were supposed to be, drawn and inserted into the packs by, people getting a hold of them, drawing on them, and selling them on eBay.
Right.
It wasn't a part of the official set.
Right.
So I think it's desperate. It's desperate times for some artists. It really is.
So let's talk about the scarcity of these cards right now. So in the past, sketch cards were one per box with Rittenhouse.
Yes, they were.
And that was a common insert. I mean, in other sets from Upper Deck, sketch cards were a lot more predominant. And now we're looking at a Marvel Platinum checklist where they're not even a case hit.
Yes, that's very surprising. It almost gives me the feeling that companies are starting to scale back on sketch cards to the point where it might not even be available anymore. No more sketch cards on a set.
That's wild too. That's a wild thing to consider, given the popularity of sketch cards with the community.
It's true, but then think of the money that Upper Deck would save on that. You don't have to ship any blanks to anybody. You don't have to pay anybody.
Right.
Is
that a concern?
Any ideas either?
For yourself, you're very well established. How would that affect a newer sketch card artist who's out there? Like, that would be the end for them, wouldn't it?
If hypothetically, if Upper Deck were to stop doing sketch cards and not hiring, sketch card artists, so basically you're trying to find a job somewhere else now with either Tops or Rittenhouse or whatever you can do. For me personally, it wouldn't affect me in the sense of income.
Yeah.
But I know for a lot of other artists, especially overseas, this is where they actually make their money. And it would literally crush them. It would hurt them financially, probably emotionally too. I mean, doing stuff like that and all of a sudden getting cut off. I hope it never gets to that. But like I said, you kind of got to have a buffer and kind of like a plan B if it does happen. Luckily, my wife and I have our own trading card business, which is where 90% of our income comes from.
Yeah.
So, we produce 2 sets a year and we're good.
Why do you think that Upper Deck would be making this move to make them scarcer? I understand what you're saying on a cost saving measure for moving them. But as an insert that people enjoy so much, it seems crazy to make them as rare as they've made them. What do you think about?
I agree. I totally agree with that. They make them rare, so they make them more desirable. That's fine. That's totally fine, because there's nothing wrong with the collector going for the hunt. Nothing wrong with that. That's what they used to do years ago. It was, everything wasn't handed to you. You had to go for it, which was part of the fun.
Yeah.
If they were to stop doing it, and well, what are you going to do about it?
That's right. There was recently I think it was DC or something. They've stopped doing, with Star Wars, they stopped doing APs or something like that.
It was Tops stopped. APs are no longer part of the contract. There are going to be no more APs for the Star Wars products, which it does suck, and I don't know what kind of an effect that's going to have.
Right.
But the thing that I get worried about is, regardless if they stop APs, there's still ways for people to get their hands on inserted blanks.
Yes.
So there's always going to be that desire to own that blank and have what you want drawn on it, regardless if it's AP or not. I think maybe that's why Upper Deck might be rethinking how they're doing things and saying, okay, well, let's make them scarce. Maybe if we weed it out all together, next thing you know, it's going to be one sketch card per 5 cases.
Yeah. It's a wild thought. I mean, I think people who are into sketch cards are probably a little bit freaked out about opening up product. That's the case.
Well, no, and it's true. And the thing is, too, not all sketch cards are created equal. You are going to have some that are, somebody's going to pull that card and say, this box was not worth that sketch card. That's, I didn't make my money back. But I mean, this has been said many times. It's like a lottery. There's no guarantees what you're going to pull.
Yes.
You go in there, you buy it, you don't think that, I'm going to walk out with more than what I put into it.
Mm-hmm. There seems to be a premium on opening up a product. Like, getting your money back isn't really feasible. There's a premium on opening. As soon as you rip, it's like a car. You lose a percentage pulling it off the lot, brand new.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I was wondering, do you have a favorite cardstock that you've worked on? Like, I know that the cardstock is different for every set, but is there one you're like, that was a really fun card to draw on?
You know what I'm not a fan of is the Masterpieces thicker stock.
Yeah.
It's for me, I just find it a little awkward just to have it on my table, because it is thicker and it divots my hand. It's kind of just weird. Masterpieces was too thick. Premier was okay. Wasn't as thick. I think Premier had a nice smooth texture to it, and I think it was easier to go on. Some of these cards I was having problems actually with doing colored pencils on them, because the colored pencils wouldn't blend as well.
Oh yeah.
And it was weird, and there was some sort of coating on the card, almost like a semi-gloss.
Yeah, I've noticed the cardstock. So much of the cardstock varies. Like, Premier on the single cards, there's a lot of labeling on the bottom. There's even less room to work with, where I've seen other cards where people just blast over all of it. Like some of the Masterpiece sketches, they've just gone over all of the writing that says Masterpieces and all that.
Yeah. I personally I think the Masterpieces design, I think, is one of the better designs, because it's just a little, the little design accents on the side or the bottom or whatever, and it's usually in silver, what have you, and that's just easy to go over. But I have seen sets where almost a quarter of the card is just like logo and design, and you can't really do anything with it. And it's like, okay, well, I have even less space to draw on now, but I can't design these cards for these people. So.
That's right. So when you get to work on a Premiere set where they're 5x7s and they're 3-panel and 4-panel, do you like? Is it a pleasure to get to work on a 4-panel, or is it daunting? You're like, oh my god, now I got to do a 4-panel.
Here's a little secret: I don't work on those cards.
Oh, okay.
I've only done a regular sized inserted sketch card. I was actually supposed to do my first 5x7s for an upcoming set, but I got so behind, I couldn't meet their deadline, so I had to send the cards back. So I'm not going to be a part of that set, but it would have been cool, because and it was only 4 cards, only 4 5x7s.
Yeah.
But I had the scenes already penciled out on what I wanted to do for them, and it was going to be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's a secret I'm taking to my grave.
You know what I was about? So that's what I was going to lead into here is that you find out what sets are coming out long before other people. You must get hounded sometimes by people trying to get a little bit of a hint at what's coming out.
Oh yeah, I always get asked, "Oh, what sets are you working on? What's new that's coming up that I don't know about?" I won't tell anybody. Do you have any images of the cards? What do the blanks look like?
That's right.
It's like, well, no, I can't. Sorry.
Can you give us a time frame that you would have like before a set releases? How much time are you getting to work on a card before it's coming out in a set?
It varies. It really does vary because sometimes when I sign up for upper deck sets, it says they'll tell me when I'm signing the contract that the cards are going to be ready to be shipped on this date, which is cool. It might be 2 weeks down the line. I'm like, okay, cool. They're going to ship them in 2 weeks. A month will pass and I still haven't gotten the cards. And I'm like, okay, they didn't ship. So then I would contact them and say, what's going on? Oh, we're having issues with, whatever the printing or things have been delayed. But they don't tell you that. You kind of have to go and find out yourself. And usually they'll extend the deadline for maybe about a week or so, maybe even 2. But you usually get about 2 months, maybe less.
Seems tight.
It is kind of tight because a lot of people just don't work on the one sets. They work on multiple sets, because of the low pay. They can't afford to, okay, I'm going to concentrate on one set and have it done. Because the thing is, you don't get paid right away. You got to wait 60 days.
Yeah.
For payment. And then, so you got guys taking on multiple sets at once. And then sometimes it gets convoluted. You get so many, I've seen people do mistakes. I'm pretty sure they were working on a Marvel set and they were working on one of my sets. And because I got a Loki drawn on one of my cardstocks, and it was the Loki from the TV series. And I'm like, well, no, I can't use this.
Oh my God. I'm always so impressed. I lived in Montreal for 6 years, and I was around a lot of creative people, and I'm always so impressed at people that are making a living through art. I think it's amazing. I know I've witnessed the grind that it is, but it's an enormous accomplishment to be doing that professionally. I really tip my hat to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that the thing I like doing the most is what's supporting me, and I love doing it. So it's not like, oh, I don't want to go into work today. Oh, I got to see so-and-so. It's like, no, shit, I get to create today.
Right.
And share it with people who are fans of my work.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of fans of your work. You are a very popular artist, my friend.
I hope so.
Yeah, you really are.
It's good to hear. Like I said, it's the people that drive me. I mean, when I see people react to my cards and like when some people say, oh my God, I would never be able to afford something like that, or oh my God, I've never pulled a Perna, I want to pull a Perna, it makes me feel good. And it drives me and it makes me want to do even better.
I love that, and it shows in your work. One of the things that a lot of people have said is a standout portion of your work, besides just the character, is the backgrounds. You have amazing backgrounds on your cards.
Yeah, I didn't start off that way when I did my first couple of sets. When I first came into the business, it was more of a testing the water. So when I did the Avengers, Complete Avengers in 2006, it was more of okay, how do I handle this? And I repeated the characters, and it kind of gave me a better idea. Okay, this is what the amount of time I have. This is what I can do. So when DC Legends came out, I did no repeat cards, but I started adding some backgrounds on some of them. And I said, okay, this is doable. So slowly I started integrating more backgrounds. And I thought, you know what? If it's a character, you got to kind of, see, I'm a huge comic book fan. Huge comic book fan. So when I can draw in something, because even people have told me my stuff kind of looks like it belongs from a comic page. It's like, although it's missing is the word balloons. It tells a story or something going on. And I've always loved that. And backgrounds were very important to me because it adds to the storytelling.
Yes, absolutely it does.
I've seen people that have done beautiful portraits, no backgrounds, but I mean, that's their stick. I mean, and that's stuff that I wouldn't even touch or even attempt to do.
Right.
But for me, it's always been, here's Spider-Man. Well, I want to put Spider-Man in his environment. Here's Wolverine. I want to put Wolverine in his environment. Here's Hulk. I want the Hulk in his environment. To me, it just makes it more fun. And I always call it, I says, okay, what kind of props am I going to use for this card? What's he going to be doing?
Right.
So it's almost like a director directing a movie. You know what I mean? Okay, I need the lighting to be here. I need this to be there.
You know, I was going to say, when your cards for myself, they really tell a story. They really have a setting to them. They really there's a mood. There's a lot going on. And I feel like you're capturing a real moment in time.
Yeah. That's one big gripe I always have. And this is not to pounce on any other artist, but I love drawing the characters the way they're supposed to be drawn and what they're supposed to be doing. Like you wouldn't see Wolverine jumping around like Spider-Man. That would just look weird. It doesn't.
Right.
That's not the personality of the character. So I try to stay as true to the character's personality when I draw them as I can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even like Wolverine, I have to draw short. I've seen people draw Wolverine really tall.
Yeah, it would be weird if he was taller than Sabretooth in a battle. That would definitely.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, you know, and I was because I always reference my Marvel Universe books to see, okay, how tall is this person? What's his strength level?
Amazing.
You know, what can he do? And I just love to have that and make it as, because like I said, I grew up with these comics. Yeah. These comics taught me a lot. They taught me to draw. You know, there's an escapism for a lot of us, you know, as you're growing up, you know, oh, this is cool. This is cool. So I want to be as true to what the comics were in my cards.
Right. I've noticed a lot of artists use reference material from statues, from the actual figures of characters. Have you, and you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but is there like a go-to reference that you enjoy using? Like do you use statues or anything like that?
No, everything's from scratch, unfortunately.
That's unfortunately. I think that's amazing though, that just the references in your mind, you know.
I'll show you an example. So I'm working on, this is what I usually do. So I'll come up with thumbnails. Somebody will say, okay, I want to commission this character. So this is a Daredevil. And I'll come up with different thumbnails. And what I'll do is I'll photograph, send it to them and say, okay, which one do you like? And he picked number 2. So now I'm basically drawing that larger freehand.
Wow.
On that. So I'll add the buildings in and whatnot. I think I've gone to school enough and long enough to know how to draw properly.
Yes.
Like I did go to Sheridan College and I majored in book illustration and design. Wow. and minored in editorial illustration. Mm-hmm. I mean, they drill stuff into your head. When you go to life drawing classes, I mean, it's serious there. You don't mess around.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good with poses and the human anatomy. There's sometimes when, if I want to do a pose, and the thing is, you don't want to force a pose either because it'll make the drawing look weird. So I say, okay, can this character do this pose? And I'll kind of look at, then I'll see if I can find any reference close to that. And if it's not close to that or it's impossible, I'll just grab it and say, okay, you know what? I need to just change this and move it and make it more accurate and believable.
One of my questions was going to be your education background in art, because, you know, and I'm glad you answered it, because sometimes you look at work and you're like, this person has to be a classically trained artist. It would just be so impressive if that was just natural talent. Like there's a bit of a science to anatomy and drawing from life. And you can just see when somebody understands that flow, like that system of the human body.
Yeah. See, that's, and the thing is, you can tell. You can tell when an artist uses a reference image, but doesn't know the basics that's going on in that reference image. If that makes any sense, like how the body works, they draw what they think is going on. But when you look at it with a trained eye, you can kind of see, well, you know, this is kind of forced. You're forcing that shoulder to do that. It wouldn't do that. It'd be broken, or the waist is not proportioned to where it should be.
Right.
So yeah, I've studied comics since I was like 8 years old. You know, I used to mimic George Perez, John Byrne, do little drawings, and you know, I used to. Funny, when I was in grade 5, I did my brother's grade 10 artwork homework for him all the time, and he was getting A's on it. So I was sort of advanced.
That's so funny.
But yeah, I mean, it's good to have a basic knowledge of how the body works and how the body moves, and not just copying what you see. Understand why it's moving that way.
While you were doing life drawing and illustration, did you know the direction that your work was going to take, your career was going to take, in going into illustration for comic book companies such as Upper Deck? Or did you see yourself going in more of a fine art direction and a decision was made?
No, it was always going to be leaning towards comic books. For my third year assignment for English class, I actually produced my own comic book.
Wow.
So back then, with my own characters, but back then I kind of knew I wanted to do something with superheroes in comics. Originally, I wanted to get into comic books, be a comic book artist.
Yeah.
I've gotten great feedback. I've actually gone to Wizard World Chicago 3 times.
Wow.
In the late 90s. And I showed my portfolio around. The one guy from DC really loved the stuff, but he said, I want to see regular people in it, because basically it was a story where Starro had taken over Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel was fighting the Justice League, but there were no regular people. But one of the things the art director said, which goes back to me doing the backgrounds, he says, I like the fact that you actually make your characters exist in an environment, because you have backgrounds. He goes, a lot of artists don't put the backgrounds in every panel, and I was doing that. And he says it makes it more believable. So I was like, yeah. But what happened was it was a fluke. The sketch card thing just became a fluke, because in 2002 I was just drawing my own sketch cards on my own. I would buy board, cut them down to trading card size, draw on them, put them up on eBay. They'd sell for like $10-15. And I did that for 4 years until Rittenhouse contacted me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing that, and then I loved doing this. I was like, oh wow, like I'm kind of already doing sketch cards before Rittenhouse invited me, and then just experimenting and see how far I can take it and how much I can do with it.
Yeah.
And then I ended up opening up a company with my wife doing trading cards, and I think this is going to be what we're going to be doing until I'm an old man in diapers.
I love that. Why don't we talk a little bit about the company and where people can find you, the process for reaching out to you? Give us the whole background of the company here.
Thank God, because I thought you were going to ask me about what brand of diapers do I use.
Thank God we're not going to talk about that.
Yes. Well, Perna Studios was established in 2012. It was established because I was working for these other companies for about 6 years. I had been working for these other companies. It was minimal. I don't know if you know this, but for the first sets that I worked on, there were no APs. So APs were not a thing for DC Universe and for Complete Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, and I think we only got $3 a card back then.
That's just wild to think of.
And we were doing 200 to 250 cards a set. Yeah. And there were only like 40 to 45 sketch card artists working on these sets.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a big boom back then. There weren't that many people. I mean, like I said, it was a privilege to get to work on these Marvel sets and be, asked to do these. But again, the money wasn't really feasible. And my wife said, you have a fan following, a lot of sketch card artists. Why don't we do our own set? And I said, well, we can't afford a license. There's no way, we're scraping as it is. And she said, well, why don't we do something that is public domain? And I said, well, what can we do that's something that's public domain, but something that people would be interested in?
Mm-hmm.
She said, what about mythology? Everybody knows mythology. She goes, we can add different mythologies in the set. Hire some of these artists, see if they're willing to work with us. And yeah, sure enough. I was good friends with, still am, but a lot of these artists that were really popular and hot back then, they jumped on our set, and they did artwork, base artwork for us. They did the artwork for chase cards. They did sketch cards for us. We announced it that we were doing our own trading card set at the Philly Non-Sports Show in 2011. So it would have been May of 2011, saying that we were getting it together. 2012, our first mythology set came out. It sold in the first 10-15 minutes.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. So we were pretty happy when we said, okay, what can we do for the end of the year? And when they said, well, how about Halloween? Again, sold out. So we started doing sets based on mythology, classic fairy tales, elementals, spellcasters, cryptids, Halloween. I mean, it's gotten good, and I mean, people haven't gotten sick of us yet. So
I don't think they're going to get sick of you, Tony.
yeah.
For people that want to reach out and find you to get one of these products, is it a website, or would you rather people reach out on Instagram?
The best place to contact us. Well, you can see samples of the work. There's a Perna Studios Deviant art group that we have. When we get closer to the set release and we have images, we start showing showcases of each artist, 3 samples of sketch cards that they're doing for the set. And then we'll show the base card artwork and any chase cards. And we'll usually have information about the release date and how much everything is on that. Also, we have a Facebook group, Perna Studios, that people can join. And we always update that. That's probably the better one to do because we update that almost every day.
Very nice.
Yeah, and artists always show their stuff on that Facebook group too. So it's more of a community and more interactive that the collectors get with the artists as well.
Very nice. What I'll do in the description of this video, guys, is I'll include links for Tony's contact and sites and things like that, so that if you're interested, you can take a look there right in the description. Just click down below and we'll have that.
That would be awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. We wanted to cover these inserts becoming a rarity. And so with you mentioning that you have your own company, I love how you and your wife have gotten in front of that. Rather than stomping your feet and being upset about something, you guys have been proactive in creating something that's going to keep this going for you guys.
Yes. And we guarantee a sketch card in every pack or set that we do. So.
Tony, another thing about you in the hobby, you're very well known as a sketch card artist. You're also very well known for having a fantastic sense of humor. And I really appreciate that. That's the Canadian in my friend.
I have to. I don't know if, according to Jake McManus, all Canadians are nuts. So
I agree 100%.
So, you know what? I'm happy. I love being cheerful. I love making other people smile. If somebody could laugh at my goofiness, then it makes me happy. It doesn't do anything to me. I don't feel ashamed or embarrassed.
It's fantastic. I love it. I think everybody loves it. It's a really good time. I can edit this out if you don't want to answer this question, but I know that you have a very funny story about your wife collecting Rogue and somebody reaching out about a sketch card needing to have a Perna sketch. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Oh my God, yes. So I worked on one of these sets for I'm pretty sure it was Rittenhouse Archives, and it might have been one of the Women of Marvel or Dangerous Diva set. And I had drawn various rogues because my wife would murder me if I do not draw a rogue when I get a chance to have these cards inserted. So I guess she's known, her collection is known online. So somebody had contacted her and said, hey, I pulled this Tony Perna Age of Apocalypse Rogue. Would you be interested in purchasing it? And she just kind of said, she's like, no, thank you for, thank you for the offer. And I'm like, no. He goes, you need, if you are a rogue collector, you need a Tony Perna in your collection. Because and he wanted ridiculous money for it too, which
I bet
I wouldn't pay for it. So, and he's going, no, like really being pushy. And she's like, well, no, I can just ask my husband Tony to draw me one if I want a rogue. And they said, oh, and then we never heard from them again.
I love this story. When you told me the story, I really enjoyed it. I think that's so funny. I'll bring it up at breakfast. I'll see if he wants to draw me one. Don't worry about it, eh?
Yeah, it's just funny when they tried to debate her with things. I'm like, honey, I still got blank APs here if you want to try anything for it.
So interesting that in those days people were trying to push cards on people. I think that with sketch cards becoming rarer, the price of sketch cards is about to go up as being a rarer insert.
It's the rarer the cards are, and I think it's going to be across the board. Your okay cards to your high end cards. I mean, I think everything's going to go up just because of the rarity and the scarcity of it. Right. And even if it's not drawn that well, if it's a popular character and you collect it, chances are you're going to go after it or try to go after it. But yeah, I mean, I think prices need to be scaled back a bit, though. I think it is getting a little insane because it makes me feel sad when I know there's a collector out there who wants a character of mine, but they can't afford to pay what they want. Like for it when they see it on eBay, when somebody's asking like a couple of hundred, or even I see one that's up there for like $1,500.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not a $1,500 card.
The collecting space has definitely changed with the amount of people that are in it and what certain people are willing to pay for things. I mean, I think that was inevitable. And I feel the same way as you. I know there are people out there with great collections that want to keep building, and it's getting harder and harder to do. Part of that makes me appreciate the past. So by saying that, I mean, people with these magnificent collections that they've assembled, I really appreciate those, because that's not really going to be a thing to be able to do anymore. It's too expensive, and there's too many parallels.
Yeah, and the thing that I'm worried about too is that is the inability to get the cards that somebody wants for their set to add it to the set. Is that going to turn them off of sketch cards? Are they going to just say, you know what, or even the whole thing say, you know what, I can't do this. There's too many out there. I can't chase everything. I want it to be a completist for whatever set, but I can't.
Right.
Because I've noticed there have been some guys that have turned around and started selling their collections.
Yeah.
Saying I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. There's definitely been some sales recently. Yeah, well, it would be interesting to see moving forward here with there's so many sets coming out. You've been around quite a while. You've been there for the lulls, and it seems like there's a different set every month to 2 months now coming out. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens here.
That's what shocks me, actually, because I didn't know Upper Deck was going to push so many sets, and I didn't know some of them were going to be EPAC exclusive.
Yeah.
Like that came as a shock to me.
Yeah, the game is changing.
It is. It's almost like, what's the fastest way we can get a product without spending as much money?
Yeah.
Let's do EPAC.
Right. Worst case Ontario, we'll just put it all out digitally. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Worst case Ontario.
Thanks, well, if you're Canadian, you get it, But
thanks, buddy. Living in Ontario. Thank you, buddy.
Right on, Tony. I really appreciate you coming out. I think we're going to wrap this up here, but I'm going to include in the description where you can find Tony Perna and Tony Studio at Perna Studios. I really suggest you go over there and take a look at some stuff. Tony, thank you so much for joining us. Anything you want to end on?
Yeah, before we go, can you read my tag that's under my name?
It is Artist Mammal Friend, which is the most accurate description of Mr. Tony Perna. This has been so fun. I'm so glad we got to do this.
Me too, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, buddy. We'll catch up again real soon with you. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. If you liked this, like the video, subscribe, and make sure you find Tony.
Yeah. Grading's awesome. Come on, man.
Take care, guys. Thanks, Tony.
Bye-bye. Thank you.